Hey everyone, I'm Justin Bogart of Bright Path Notes, and this is the July 2021 Be the Bank Real Estate broadcast brought to you from Indianapolis, Indiana. Today we have a guest on later today. It's going to be Dickie Baldwin. He's our due diligence sponsor today, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the mortgage industry update as to what's going on, and got some exciting things to show you today. So we'll see you here in just a few minutes. Well, hey there, Richard. How are you?
Fine, sir. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I see you got a big green balloon behind you.
Well, that's my little cartoon balloon, you know. I'm having, what does they say? Technology is great, except when it's not. Well, I'm having one of those it's not moments. My sound's not working. My green screen's not working. Who knows what's going on?
Well, I'm just glad you could join us today because I know I talked to you about our guest, Dickie Baldwin, a little bit.
Yeah.
And you've met Dickie before, so we'll bring him on in just a little bit. But
he's a good guy.
Absolutely. So for those of you watching right now, watching on the replay, we will have a more question and answer period at the end of our broadcast, kind of our little after party. So you stick around, you'll definitely have a chance to ask questions for Dickie, and he'll be able to answer them for you. In the meantime, feel free to comment on, if you're on YouTube or Facebook, go ahead and comment in the comment section there, and we'll see your comments pop up, and we may answer them during the broadcast. We may wait until the end, but please keep them coming in. Or if you just want to say hello, by all means, say hello. We always like seeing our fans and our watchers and listeners out there. So Richard, everything going good for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've got this funny thing plugged in my ear, but other than that, it's fine, you know.
You look like a sportscaster right now.
That's right. That's right. Coming to you live. Yeah. What? Justin, we lost you. Well, I will carry on the show since Justin's not here for the moment.
Hi.
But, hey, he's back.
Yeah, you had technical problems, and now I had technical problems.
Maybe a technical day. Dickie, it's not always this way. It's not always pandemonium. But so go ahead. Take it away, Justin.
Well, we got one of my friends, Tom Manuel, on, said he's a fan. Tom, I know you're always on. I appreciate it. I'm a fan of you too, my friend. So I'm going to go ahead and switch us over and get this PowerPoint going. So bear with me just a second. All right, Richard?
All right. Sure.
All right, let's see if I can screen share working for me.
Okay.
I mean, how are we having the same difficulties on the same day at the same time? This is just very, very unique.
It's very bizarre.
Anyways. All right, so this is the Real Estate Note Investing Be the Bank broadcast, where we talk about all things related to the note business. But first and foremost, we have to tell you that we're not attorneys, we are not tax consultants, and we are not financial advisors. We just share our experience in the real estate investing world, specifically the note space. This broadcast would not be possible without some sponsorship. So my company, Bright Path Notes, that's me, Justin Bogart. My email is justin@brightpathnotes.com if you want to get a hold of me. And we say that we've got the deal flow to make your cash flow. So we have a website, brightpathnotes.com. And if you go to our note deal section, we usually have a few deals that we offer for sale. Otherwise, we kind of source inventory for those folks. Our local real estate club is CIREA, Central Indiana Real Estate Investor Association. And Vicki Perry is the executive director there. And we have her phone number and her email listed above there. And what they do is they are like any other real estate club. They have a pretty big following. We have almost 1,000 members right now, Richard, locally here in Indianapolis.
Fantastic.
That are part of this real estate club. We got fix and flippers, we got wholesalers, we got a lot of landlord people, and we have a few note people as well. And so this is a part of that network as well. And this is what they call the subgroup called Be the Bank. And so that's
Cool.
why they're a part of our show, and that's why they sponsor this event as well. And then our guest today, Mr. Dickie Baldwin, he's definitely been a sponsor for quite some time with us. So we truly appreciate him, his sponsorship, and him being a leader in our industry as well. And I'm excited to talk to him today. You can reach out to Dickie at dbaldwin@baldwinadvisorygroup.com, and we'll save his stuff for a little bit later, so you guys will dive deep into exactly how Dickie works with investors like me and Richard all the time, almost on a daily basis. Our self-directed IRA sponsorship is New View Trust Company. We had Brian on not too long ago, and you can reach out to them, 407-708-1853. And if you email new accounts at newviewira.com, you mention this broadcast, the Be the Bank broadcast, they're going to waive your setup fee. Pretty cool. They do all sorts of self-directed IRAs. They do 401ks, solo 401ks. They have the Coverdale educational accounts. They have the health savings accounts, all that stuff that's in the self-directed realm. That's what they do. All right. So back to the local organization called Cyria. We want to encourage you guys to follow them on Facebook. We want to follow them on Instagram, which is the little picture icon. And then the LinkedIn, excuse me, they have a really long name. I need to work on that with them. They do have a YouTube channel where they got a ton of free videos out there from the local experts in our area for the different facets of real estate if you're interested. But more importantly, we have a lot of investors that invest in Indiana, Richard. So it's really cool for them to be a part of this network. And when they get in a part of this network with Cyria, they have basically boots on the ground of people that know the area, know the streets, know the pockets of Indiana or Indianapolis that are best to invest in or some to stay away. So it's really cool to be a part of that. So
I've actually called a couple of their members a couple of times, and they've been a great help.
Awesome. You wouldn't be the only one. There's been several people to reach out to me and others in our group as well. So we're happy to help. So for those of you that want PHP credits, you're going to take out your little smartphone. You're going to hover your camera over that little QR code. It's going to pop up a website, and then you click on that website. You're going to enter in your name and first your name, last name, and I think either your phone number or email. Then you're going to get PHP credits. This is just for the Cyria members only. If you're not a Cyria member, just don't worry about it. All right, Richard, as you know, I have a podcast called The Two Wealth Show, and my co-host Elizabeth Sickles, aka Super E, is a short-term rental expert. And so we talk about all things real estate. So we're on all the podcast directories, you know, from Apple Play to Google Play to Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify. We're on all those directories. We record this as well. We do it on a YouTube channel. So if you look up on our YouTube channel, you'll probably find a playlist that says Two Wealth Show or the Super E and J podcast, as it formerly was called. And you'll be able to see all the video recordings of our interviews and the podcasts that we've done. So we've done, let's see, Richard, we're on a third season here. We're getting ready to record episodes 15 and 16 pretty soon. So we've got some good information out there for you.
Fantastic.
All right. Today's agenda for July 14th, we're going to talk about the note basics as we always do. We have a lot of new people that jump on our broadcast. We want to just show them kind of how this world is working so they understand real estate note investing a little bit. We're going to dive into what's kind of going around the industry as the note investing world is. And Richard and I and Dickie will even jump in and give us kind of thoughts and where we're at and what things are going on, because this big forbearance problem, as people are perceiving it, we're going to see actual data and actual numbers, and we're going to kind of digest that and just learn every month when we bring this topic up to see what direction are we really going and how is the world shaping up as far as the real estate note world. And so then Dickie Baldwin's going to have the ending part of our show, and we're going to dive into specifics as to what he does and the real value that he provides to people like me and Richard. And stay on for the after party, where we're going to be able to ask Dickie a bunch of questions and get the answers from him. So what do you think?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's bring on our guest today, Mr. Dickie Baldwin. How are you?
Wonderful. It's a little rainy here in Houston.
Oh, you're in Houston. Okay. I thought you were in Dallas.
No, that's a suburb of Houston.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Dickie, thanks for being part of our show today. Thanks for being a sponsor on our show as well.
Absolute. Enjoy it.
Yeah. So right now you're on Central Time, and then good old Richard's out there in California, so he's on Pacific Time. So we're kind of hitting quite a few time zones with me on Eastern today.
Fantastic.
Yeah, isn't that great? Technology can put us all together.
Yeah, if we just get the sound to work, it'd be great.
That's right. Get our internet and stuff to work, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to dive into the note basics. So this is something that we go into every time just to show the listener or the viewer exactly what it is that we're talking about here. So when we invest in real estate, or we buy real estate, or we use it as our primary residence, this is what's going to happen at the closing table. You got a buyer, you got a seller, and you got a piece of property. Pretty simple, right? The seller is the owner of the house, right? They have that deed or that piece of paper that shows that they're on record of being the owner. When they close on this house, they pay a price for it. They'll probably put down a down payment. Then they're going to need some help from a bank. So they're going to go to their local bank. They're going to say, hey, I need more money to be able to buy this house. And that bank's going to write a promissory note and mortgage. The mortgage is the instrument that secures that house. And that's really what the bank owns, right? So they own the debt on the property. So the bank owns the note, the seller holds the deed. The buyer holds the deed, and they own the house, right? The bank doesn't own the house. They just own the debt on the house. Let's fast forward to see how Richard and I and Dickie kind of get into this world. So you got the homeowner here. They got the deed. They got their the bank has their security, which is the mortgage. The borrower signed a promissory note that says, I promise to pay $100,000 over 30 years with, XYZ interest. This investor over here now, it could be Richard, could be me, could be Dickie. It could be a retirement account. It could be just an LLC, an LLP, a corporation, a trust. Really, any person or entity that has a lump sum of money can buy that mortgage note from that bank. It's pretty easy, right? That lump sum of money is just paying for that note, and notice nothing changed hands for the actual owner of the property. So now the monthly payments, instead of them going to the bank, guess where they're going now? They're going to the investor now. So nothing changes for the borrower. They still make their payment. They still have to adhere to those terms on that promissory note, right? It's just that they're directing their payment to a new place.
So Justin, somebody told me that a lot of those payments go to the Justin Bogard Children's Education Fund. Is that true?
They do. A lot of payments do.
All right, just want to make sure.
I don't know how they get directed there. They just go. Right there.
It's funny. If you set up the deal, college gets worked in there somehow. I don't know how that works.
College is expensive.
Wait till you had 12 grandkids.
Okay.
So you got a lot of Coverdale accounts then set up for all the.
That's right.
All right, 2021. We're going to talk about kind of some market updates, just for the viewing audience, listening audience to know. We get our mortgage stats here from Black Knight Financial Data. They are we'll say our mortgage industry leader in giving us research data on what is going on in the mortgage industry. And every month they come up with this beautiful report. They have charts, they have graphs, they get into very fine detail as to what's going on in the real estate realm and as it pertains to mortgages. And so one of the things that we look at is just kind of the overview of the stats. So Richard, we've seen improvements over the last probably 9 months of the delinquency rate. So that's a good thing. We're still about 4 times the amount that we were before the pandemic. But as we've seen since, we'll just call it April of 2020 all the way to now July of 2021, we've seen a very steady improvement every month over month. Not a big change, but we've seen steady improvement.
Yeah, given what's going on, I'm amazed at that number. I'll be very curious to see now that a lot of the stimulus payments are stopping. What's going to happen to that? And Dickie, I'd be interested to hear what you think about it at some point too. But
yeah, I can feel that because of the holdback on payments, that inventory is probably going to be hitting the streets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The matter of when, right? It's not if, it's when.
Right.
Correct.
So we're going to look at this data a little closer, guys, and then we're going to kind of see, as we do every month, and we're going to see what's reality. And of this big, large number that's out there, we're going to see what's really going to be compressed and what slice of that is really going to be available as what we're going to call delinquent or non-performing loans. So right now, the national delinquency rate is just about what normal is. Right now, it's sitting at about 4.73. It hovered a little bit higher than last month. Like it said, about it went up 1.5% versus over the last month. So we're hovering very close to normal. So you can see these big, large spikes with the blue graph back in 2009 when it was its worst, close to 11% delinquency rate, and at its worst during the COVID pandemic, it got up to about 7.75%. So we are nowhere near what it was during the financial crisis of 2009. So the little green squiggly line is showing what normal is, and that's just the 2000, 2005 average. They're having some sort of comparison so we can see when we're really getting back good. Now, there's a lot of forbearances out there, but we're just saying the national delinquency rate is back to what I'll say, what normal could be.
And so just explain to the crowd, what's the definition of delinquency?
Anything that is 30 plus days behind on a payment. So if your payment's due on July 1st and the last time you made a payment was June 1st and now today is July 14th, I had to look at my watch, you are delinquent on your loan. And technically you're in pre-foreclosure. But you're considered.
Do you have a calendar there in your wrist? Is that what you were looking at?
I do. I got a little fancy watch that tells me when to take my medicine, what time it is. When do I need to go inside.
And if you've got anybody past due, it tells you all your different borrowers are past due. Right.
Dickie, you owe payment, man.
Oh my gosh, I got to go.
I got to get one of those watches.
So this stat was kind of interesting. So I haven't shown this in a while, but as payments come in, as you can tell, some people pay at the beginning of the month. Some people pay in the middle of the month, depending on what their promissory note tells them that they need to pay on. So we'll just assume that most of these are paying on the 1st or the 15th. Let's say 80% of them pay on the 1st and as 20% of them pay on the 15th. So what this is saying is that, by the time the 25th day comes around, if you look back from May of 2020, it shows that 88% of payments were coming in by the 25th day of each month. So pretend like the first was when the payment was due. And so the 25th day, it's not delinquent, it's just late, but we've got 88% of the payments that had come in by then. Fast forward to today, or last month, I should say, and that about 92.3% of them come in by the 25th day of the month, which is getting a lot better. Anything to say about that, Richard?
It's getting a lot better.
It's getting a lot better. As someone wise once told you. So delinquencies are getting on a downward trend. I think that's what we're getting at here.
Right.
All right. This is one of my favorite stats because it shows a pie. I don't know why I like pie charts. Maybe it's because I like pie. Keyline pie is my favorite, if anybody wants to know. The big green sliver there of 46% is showing of loans that have been removed from forbearance or they've expired and they're performing. They're performing like normal, meaning they're paying before the next due date. That's a good number. So 3.3 million out of the 7.25 million of forbearances have come out good. Surprisingly, this number has been jumping up even more. The paid off number, the 1.3 million down there in gray, 18% of those mortgages have been paid off. I wonder why that is, Richard.
Well, if I weren't moving something around on my screen, I could tell you. Actually, I think a lot of folks have been taking advantage of the lower rates, and they have been able to refi, and that's why we're seeing that.
Right. So we're going to be talking about that in a few minutes. What we call tappable equity. So to combine those numbers together, we're looking at about 64% of loans in forbearance as of June 15th, 2021 are becoming reperforming or they're being paid off. So the loans are becoming current and in the right direction. So when we first started in the pre-pandemic era, we were seeing about probably closer to 30 some percent. We started creeping up in the 40%. And then last month we were over 50%. And now we're jumping even more. And I think the big reason why, Richard, is also because the forbearance expirations are coming up. A lot of them are expiring this last month in June and this month in July. So the next 2 months of data that comes out, I think we're going to see a continued rise in loans that come out smelling like a rose, so to speak.
So I was just noticing the active forbearance number here, the blue part of the pie. Do you know has that increased from last month, or do you not remember?
I don't remember what the exact number is. That's a good question. I want to say it's down a little bit just because the amount of paid off has jumped up quite a bit. I want to say the last time we checked the paid off amount, it was closer to 10 or 11%. So It would seem that a lot of loans are paying off from the previous time that we took this data, which would have been mainly the April data.
Right. Because that would be a good precursor number for actual defaults. As that number goes up, it's going to slip into the number of actual delinquencies. So
yeah. So you look at the yellow, you shows active loss mitigation loans, about 333,000, which is 5% of this set. The remove expired delinquent loans, that's the worst of the worst here. That's 195,000, 3%. So if you consider 8% of this pie is in some sort of issue, right? It's probably going to go through foreclosure, or it's probably going to be one of those remodifications, or it's going to be a delinquent loan that ends up being a deed in lieu maybe. So that's the piece of the pie that's the problem right now. The piece of the pie that might be a problem, or some of it will be a problem, is the active forbearance in blue, and then the darker blue, the active forbearance original term. We don't know how much of that is going to cross over to the delinquency side, but based on what we're seeing right now, we're saying about probably 60 to 70% of it, those numbers are going to move back in the right direction. So
right. So you got 7.25 million forbearances. I can only handle 5 million of those. So that's 2.5 million are, there for other people to handle. So, there's plenty of business, right?
This is why I bring Richard on, Dickie.
I understand.
All right. So the tappable equity here, this is the last slide. Then we'll get into Dickie Baldwin's company. Richard, tappable equity. This is a very important stat to know, and also to see on a graph here to show you from 2004 to 2021. I believe it's taking a snapshot of one month of the year. 1 year each from 04 to 21. Mm-hmm. And you can see how it gets up. And this is in the billions, guys. This is the $1 billion number. So we're looking at 4285 in 2004, and now the tappable equity is 8100 in billions of dollars. So $8,000 billion.
So tappable equity, that's money that they could use if they needed to. So in other words, they could take out a second, they could do a home equity loan, they could do anything of that sort, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they could refinance, and that would pay off their current debt, and then they would just have new debt. So the data would show that loan has been paid off.
Right. So even if it hasn't been paid off, even if they say take out a HELOC, so that they can stay current on their first, what this is really is, it's a chart of elasticity in the market.
Right. So this is saying that borrowers retaining at least 20% equity, they still have that much tappable equity because of the home price appreciation that's just been going through the roof. So guess who lives in Houston?
I cannot even wonder who that might be.
So Houston, I think, is going up quite a bit as well as far as their home prices. Maybe not as much as Austin, but it's going up quite a bit, right? Am I wrong?
It's skyrocketing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd be interested to know. I don't have the data on what states were rising the fastest last month. I just chose to use this stat because I like the tappable equity. It's just really neat to know of everyone's home prices. And this is another reason why defaults aren't as prevalent as they were in 2009, because the inverse of this happened in 2009, right? Where property values dropped and debt doesn't drop or rise. It just, the debt's the debt, right? In this instant, the property values rose a bunch and the debt stays the same. So then you have this larger gap That's called the tappable equity that goes above and beyond what they owe on debt versus what the value of the home was when they got the loan.
Right. So personally, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see the huge wave crash of defaults that we are all anticipating, because you've got information like this. You've got low rates, as you showed in the last chart. You've got a lot of people who are refinancing because they can. So there may not be. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a wave.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's going to be as large as a lot of people think it is.
Well, it'll probably be controlled to some extent, right? So instead of having 1 million mortgages foreclosing on at one time, maybe it's, a couple 100,000 throughout, 6 to 8 months that they're going to be releasing. It may be kind of a drip. Maybe it's going to be more aggressive than what we're seeing right now, right? And there's going to be opportunity. I think that's what we're all agreeing on. But I don't think it's going to be an opportunity to where we're going to see so much foreclosures all at once that we're not going to be able to handle it. We're seeing a lot of the servicers, the bigger servicers now, that are starting to piece off those chunks of forbearances that they know they're not going to handle, because they've increased, their capacity, they're over capacity to be able to handle these mortgages. So you're going to starting to see more trades. And on one of our podcasts, we've had Alex Kolsevsky of Pro Title. He was on there and he was talking about how he's seen some trades going on in the background. As far as we're talking like Fannie and Freddie and Goldman Sachs, like some of the bigger entities, like when they make moves, the rest of us see it probably, I don't know, Richard, what do you think? Like 8 to 10 months later, we start seeing some of that inventory when it starts getting traded.
Right.
Justin, I got a question. The data that comes for these reports, is that the traditional Fannie, Freddie, FHA type loans? Does that include the community banks and the credit unions and those entities?
Great question. And the answer is kind of. So what this is it does FHA, it does Fannie, it does Freddie, it does VA, it does private securities, it does large portfolios, and mostly the big banks. The community banks, they're probably going to end up selling to Fannie and Freddie. So they're going to be a part of this data as well. So the mom and pop notes, the seller finance data, and the hedge fund data, where they buy the REO properties and they turn them into notes, whether they're land contracts or note mortgages, that data is not going to be in here because we don't know those numbers, because it's not regulated like these other loans are. So these other loans that we're talking about, that's going to be the body of the 60 million mortgages out there that this data is comprised of. But the other probably, 40 million, let's just throw out a number out there, is going to be the mom and pop data that we don't see in these numbers.
Okay.
Good question. No one's asked that. I'm surprised.
Nobody's as smart as Dickie.
And let's just bring
Nobody's as old as Dickie.
So one of the coolest things about what you did with your company is that you just simply named it BAG. And I'm like, BAG? Oh, Baldwin Advisory Group. And then you had another play on it. It says one bag for all your real estate services. So that was a pretty cool little catch.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to splash up here on the ticker down at the bottom. That's Dickie Baldwin's email address. If you guys, I know we showed it earlier, but I want to show it now. We'll show it at the end of his part of the presentation here, but I wanted to put it up there. So, Dickie, you've been in the business for a minute, haven't you?
About 40 years.
40 years? And you're only 42 years old? Man.
I was just going to say, yeah, it doesn't look a day over 42 to me.
Retired several times.
So take us down the journey of your life, being like, a real estate investor or being in the mortgage industry. I know you got a lot of background to cover, but if you can if you are able to summarize it, kind of take us down this journey here.
Absolutely. Well, you'll notice it says 35 years. That's when this was originally printed, and my website is being redone. And so that terminology will be updated to 40 years. But yes, appreciate the opportunity to be with you guys, Justin and Richard, and everybody out in YouTube land and on the podcast. The journey has really started back in after I left the auto parts business and became a realtor. Learned the ins and outs of how that operates. Then I was doing mortgage loans in the 18% range back when I was a loan originator.
Wait, 18%?
18%.
18% interest rates, right?
Yes, yes. Richard, do you remember those days?
I do. One of the first loans, actually, and I'm not trying to play one-upmanship here, but one of the first loans I ever wrote was at 21%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. And so people cringe when they hear 5%. Richard and I will call that the good old days.
The good old days.
Yeah. So notice we both got gray hair, right?
Absolute.
I don't have any hair.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't going to mention that.
Mine's a wig.
Yeah.
But after doing loan origination, I got into wholesale mortgage lending, correspondent mortgage lending, warehouse lending, helped put up several mortgage net branch operations across the country, been an investor, and been in the title industry. And I had retired in 2018. I know you're not supposed to disclose your age, but I was 70 at that time. And I will be 73 in September, if anybody remembers this. September 17th, to be precise.
Oh, close to my niece's birthday.
So at any rate, seriously, after being retired just for a very, very short period, I realized that the industry needed a one-stop shop.
Mm-hmm.
Folks get on the internet, especially new investors, and they don't know where to go. They don't know the terminology. They don't know what a BPO is. They don't know what a title search is. They hear that, they Google that, and then some company pops up and you don't know what you're getting. So basically what I did, I went to the folks that I have worked with through the last 40 years and told them the idea of having a one-stop shop where investors could do BPOs, they could do title searches, they could originate seller finance mortgages, they could do servicing, they could get a realtor, they could get an attorney, just a multitude of services. So instead of getting on the internet, trying to find all these different things that you as an investor have to have, you got to have a team of people put together of experience that can help you become successful. And voila, bag was created. One bag for all your real estate services.
Right. Dickie, I think I'm not too far off in saying too that you're probably one of the best connected people in the industry.
Absolutely. That's saying it lightly.
I love people. I'm doing this seriously from the heart. I love helping folks. I mean, I did know Justin previously, and he needed some work done, and he contacted me, and I hope I've been able to be of benefit to him and you, Richard. And I mean, there's thousands and thousands of investors out there, and I've met many of them at conferences, and this website really came to light unfortunately, when the pandemic hit, because we couldn't have our conferences anymore. I mean, we really weren't even doing Zoom conferences. And for the people that know me, I was just about at every conference in the country. And I met a lot of great people, and we were able to talk face to face at these conferences and be able to do the services. And so once again, with the pandemic, the website was there. People were still investing. They were still buying. They were still selling. They still needed a team to do their due diligence. And so we just exploded with all of the services that you see here on the screen.
Yeah, so I can attest, Dickie, that I've, one of the reasons why I was glad you were able to be a sponsor for our show is the reason why I went to you, Dickie, is because I heard so much praise about, talk about Dickie, you hear Dickie Baldwin. I'm just like, okay, I've got to meet this guy and see how he can help me out. And when I talked to you on the phone, it just clicked. I was like, wow, this guy, he has exceptional customer service, first of all. And you, like Richard said, you are so well connected with so many different people because you've spent so much time and energy, face to face, learning what other people have to offer and how you can benefit and connect somebody else together. And so you're kind of like a network specialist, if you will. But you've done everything right by me and more. And whenever I send an order to you, it's completely taken care of. And it's so hands off for me. It's such a convenience. It's almost like you're my personal assistant when it comes to these orders, Dickie.
Thank you, sir.
It's
Can I have a raise?
Yeah. And I don't know of any other vendor that I've used in any, my previous life and what I do now that has the customer service that you do and the ability to stay on top of it and to keep it to a time sensitive order. So,
well, to explain a little bit of the service, the BPOs and the title searches obviously are what I feel two of the most important items that are needed in the due diligence arena. And I always tell people when I first meet them and explain what I do, and you mentioned the mom and pop a few minutes ago. The mom and pop will typically do maybe 5 to 10 BPOs and title searches a year. By coming to Bag, because I do literally hundreds every month, that gives the mom and pop the opportunity of what I call strength in numbers.
Yeah.
And it's a win-win for everybody. Because the vendors that I have, such as in the BPO, I will place the order. The product, fortunately, is labeled under the Bag logo. I'm the actual client with the third-party vendor. I don't chase all over the country and take pictures, but I have third-party vendors that have vetted agents that will do what we have on the screen, which is a BPO or broker price opinion. And it used to be in the old days that you could call an agent, look on the internet, try and find an agent that will go out and look at the property for you, maybe take some pictures and give you a value. Well, yes, that's still being done some, but agents are just like everybody else. They're looking for listing or selling a house. So the third-party vendors that I work with nationwide, doing both residential and commercial, as well as appraisals, just not BPOs, they have vetted agents within the area, be it Indianapolis or be it Houston or wherever. When I place the order, it is given to a vetted agent that their job is to go out and do one thing and one thing only, and that's to get a value, not to try and get a listing. In fact, many of the times the agent's contact info directly is not on the report. But the advantage of going through the third party is once the agent completes the BPO, which will consist of 3 recently sold comps, hopefully in the neighborhood, 3 listings, hopefully in the neighborhood, to come up with an as-is value. And if there's any visible damages, then they can adjust that as-is value to an after-repaired value. Once that report is completed, it goes back to the third-party vendor's quality control. If quality control does not agree with what the agent has come up with, then they will send it back for revisions. So basically, you've got an extra set of eyes for that BPO, and we can do rural, we can do inner city, and as I said, we can do commercial, also do appraisals.
Perfect.
Dickie, I got I looked at a property or a note to buy just yesterday. It's interesting you'd be going through all this because I opened up the BPO. I hadn't seen this company's BPOs before. And what are we, July 14th? The picture was date stamped January 1st, 2020. And I thought, it was in Indiana. There's snow all over the ground. You can barely see the building. And I thought, do you think that guy really went out there and took pictures?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, obviously somebody had sat there and said, let's spend 5 minutes on this, and boom. So I'm glad you're out there providing good quality BPOs.
Yeah.
Well, I also might mention that in the BPO arenas, there's also a thing which I do a lot for Justin, is a property condition report.
Right.
And that is where we will go out and take current pictures of the subject, answer a slew of questions such as, does it appear to be occupied or vacant? Mm-hmm. Is the dwelling any visible damages? Is it comparable for the neighborhood? It gives you an overview of the subject property. The difference between a property inspection or condition report and a BPO is there's no value. There's no comps and there's no values. All you have is a picture of the subject and of the street and of the address. But it's an alternative to a BPO if you happen to be satisfied in your own mind with the value.
So you're probably asking yourself this question, the listener, the viewer here, is why would I want to have a report that doesn't give a value? It doesn't make any sense, right? Well, think of it this way. Richard, when do banks start getting uncomfortable lending at what value to a house?
Oh, well, depending on what tier you're in, but let's say 70% loan to value, maybe 80%.
Okay. And what number specifically would a bank not feel comfortable lending, or most banks don't lend below a certain amount? That's what I'm kind of getting. Let's pretend like we're in the Midwest.
Most banks don't want to go below $100,000 in mortgage amount. So
in the Midwest, where I invest the most in the southern states, let's just call them blue collar areas, what are the average home values of this class that we're going after?
Maybe 75 to 80 for the home value and a lot less than that for the mortgage value.
So what happens when I try to go out and get a BPO from Dickie and he sends a real estate agent out to this area where they don't have any bank traditional financing comparables?
He's out of luck.
Right. They're not going to find any, right?
Right.
If they do, it might be a credit union, or it might be something, there are circumstances where certain banks or credit unions would lend below that magic number, we'll say $100,000, but I'm not going to find any. So Richard, how do I go out and find the value of the house?
Well, I think as Dickie has pointed out, you can try and get a realtor to do something of a comp report. I have to say, though, that a lot of the comp reports in this that I see throughout the Midwest, they say, well, there wasn't a comp for 30 miles or 40 miles or whatever. So it's dubious at best.
Right.
You can always use realtor.com and Zillow. Those numbers are going to be soft.
Yeah.
Honestly, a lot of times what I will do, I'll use the rental value. Mm-hmm. I'll look at the rent. I'll put in some expenses and figure out what I could rent it for. Maybe if I could sell it at a 10 cap or whatever. And that's how I establish value.
Yeah, exactly. That's the best way to value a property when it gets below a certain price point. So the reason why most of my business with Dickie is those property condition reports is because I don't need a realtor to go out to tell me of perceived value of the house, because it's not going to be fair to them because they don't have any data to support that number, really. Or if they do have that data, it's so far out that it doesn't make sense.
The other thing that I like to tell clients is a picture is worth 1,000 words. Yeah. Because if you have a property condition report and the house is destroyed on the outside, you can pretty well figure it's destroyed on the inside.
Yep.
I have a lot of clients that have very large portfolios of notes where they are collecting payments on a regular basis. You know, everything's fine. They're making money, but these clients have not laid eyes on the property probably in a year or more. So many of them are calling me and having me do a property condition report just so they can see the exterior condition.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
And-
beautiful. You're just having somebody with boots on the ground just take some snaps and photos of you. Like if I can talk to the borrower and have them do it for me, I'm definitely getting a property condition report so I can see what it looks like. I try to sneak some stuff in there, maybe get some inside photos if I can when I talk to the borrower. I'm not going to deny it.
So,
But-
Dickie, I'll share this with you, and because I think it's valuable for the crowd to hear also. And this is a true story. I'm not. This is with an experienced note buyer, somebody who had bought like 100 different notes. They had a BPO done, a 2-story house, drove by it, looked fine. They had a value. They bought the note, and then somebody went out to the property later on, and they had a property report done. What they didn't realize was the property before they bought it had been hit by a hurricane, and there was literally no back on the building. When they drove by the street, the house looked just fine, and there was no back on the building. And this is an associate of Justin's and mine. And needless to say, they did not make money on that note.
Well, I'll tell you another real quick true story. Back in my investing days, we had some assets in Cook County, Illinois. And that's back when the market was entirely different. I mean, there was 3, 4, 5 years worth of back taxes, blah, blah. It was a mess. But we quickly learned by having to do a property condition report, because the banks back then had so many assets, they didn't know what they had. We thought we had purchased dwellings on a note, and it was really an empty lot. Where Cook County had come in and did a demo of the property because it was vacant and hadn't paid taxes.
Wow.
So the bottom line is due diligence. Real quick on a BPO, you made a comment about cutting corners and looking inside. It happened to one of my clients today. We were doing an exterior BPO. The homeowner chased the agent off. So please be aware when you do get a BPO that typically the agents are instructed not to really step foot on the property for their own safety.
There are obvious reasons, right?
Yes, yes. I have people say, well, please go in the backyard or, get on the roof. Unfortunately, in a BPO, that can't be done in most cases. Yeah,
you should never ask somebody to do that. And they may put their life in their own hands because of your instructions, and they don't ask them to do that. They're going to take pictures from the distance. That's going to be from the street. They're going to do the best they can to get as close as they can to be as safe as they can, and then get out of there because, like you said, the borrowers, they have an issue with it. But you're just trying to take pictures of what it looks like now and what the street looks like. You're verifying the address, right? Because I've had notes before that I've looked at, and I get the BPO from Dickie. I'm like, that doesn't look the same.
Yeah.
So then you got the question and be like, well, you're not telling me the right note. And so that's
absolute. And the thing about in the BPO, your comparables typically should always be MLS related.
Yep.
Right. It should be.
Yes.
All right, let's move on here. So let's talk quickly about property preservation. Dickie, go ahead and explain kind of how that works quickly.
Absolute. Property preservation is where you're maintaining generally a vacant property, be it your note or be it your REO. And property preservation will cover changing door locks, cleaning an empty house out, winterizing, cutting the grass, boarding if need be, rehabbing if need be. But all of these services are eviction, door knocking, all of those type of things would fall under the property preservation. Whereas a note holder, you will end up, and I don't know what the percentage is per portfolio, but probably about 50, 60, 70% of the time, you will have to do some kind of property preservation to protect your investment. It would, Justin, is that about nail on the head?
Well, it depends on how good the investor is with their portfolio. I would say if you're doing non-performing loans, you need to look into property preservation, because you're going to need somebody to go out there to secure the property or to winterize it. Correct. That's the two main things that property preservation are going to do for you. Obviously, like Dickie said, the category is a little bit bigger than that. But generally, let's just talk about non-performers, because that's what most people hear about. They're like, oh, it's vacant. Well, you need to secure it. You need to winterize it if it's in the northern states, right? That's what.
Correct.
That would summarize it for me.
Correct.
You mentioned your bag, and you have this wide array of investor-friendly realtors across the country. So you probably have one in every county, every region, every township, every small village office out there, right, Dickie?
I have a very, very large network of investor-friendly realtors, and there's a lot of realtors out there. But and this relates back to the previous slide of property preservation. What I have been fortunate enough to be able to put together in a lot of areas, and the goal is to have an investor-friendly realtor at least in every major city of the United States. But my realtors, the bag realtors, can not only list, sell, and property manage, because most note investors do not invest in their own backyard.
Correct.
So instead of getting on an airplane and flying from California to Indiana to look at a property, you call bag for one of their investor-friendly realtors, and they are your feet on the ground for you. And I put you directly in touch with whoever that realtor happens to be. Now, the realtors, as I said, are investor-friendly, and they not only can list, sell, and property manage, but because so many of them are investors themselves or work with a lot of investors, they're able to assist us in winterizing, cutting the grass, changing the door locks. So they
can work in conjunction with property preservation, right?
Correct, because they can do the property preservation through their local network.
Absolutely.
Which is a win-win situation.
Dickie, there's got to be a joke in there somewhere about having a friendly realtor in every town, but I don't think I'm going to go there. So I'll stay away from that one.
I'll put it this way, Richard. I have kissed a lot of frogs.
Well, I won't even go there either.
To build this network.
Next,
skip tracing, valuable tool. You buy a note, non-performing note, and you're trying to find the owner with certain information. If the property is vacant, we may be able to track that realtor down for you. Excuse me, that homeowner for you.
Yeah, we're back to realtors.
you got me thinking realtors.
Yeah.
Lost my train. At any rate, be able to find the owner of the property if you're wanting to try and do a loan modification or maybe a cash for keys. It's a huge tool. There's also a lot of folks that will buy leads, and they need skip tracing done on those.
Yeah, we've had to use that before. a non-performing note we bought, and I dug into it deeper locally to find out that the deeded borrower had passed away a few years ago after I bought the note. And then I had to use skip tracing to figure out, who the relatives were and how to get a hold of them and stuff like that. So it comes in handy when you need it, when you got to track somebody down so you can have them sign the deed back over to you if you need to avoid foreclosure. So
Absolutely.
Yep.
Imagine if that was your name. Hi, my name's Skip Tracing.
Skip tracing. Skip. My company is called Skip.
Right.
Real quickly, title search is another of the most, what I feel, the most important item that you need to find delinquent taxes, liens, judgments, bankruptcies, whatever may be against that property, be it a current owner search or a two owner search. And it's not a title policy. People get confused with that a lot of times. This is where you're getting any recorded items that are available in the county courthouses, et cetera, to help formulate this report.
They are needed. I use them on every single note that I buy, performing or non-performing. I use that and the BPO or the property and condition report. Those are the minimums you should do, the bare minimum. And like you said before, you had great advice on saying on an ongoing basis, when you own a portfolio, whether it's one or two loans or a couple hundred loans, you do need to rerun, especially these property condition reports and title searches as well, to find out, okay, did any liens pop on there that I need to take care of, right?
Well, the great part is if you buy a loan today and we have the title search in it, in about 6 months, we can do for you, if you request it, an update, and that will show anything that has happened since that original date of the title search to the current. And that's a win-win. I mean, there's certain things that you have to do when you own real estate in notes, and that's to see what your property looks like and make sure that no liens or anything have snuck in behind you.
Yep.
So, Justin, do you remember the 3 things that can make your note go bad? That are the biggest of those 3? Do you remember what those are?
TTB, taxes, title, and blight.
That's right. That's right. And title's a huge one. And I have to say that the biggest problems I have had have been title problems. And to your credit, Dickie, the things that I think that somebody like me as an investor we're least able to understand. I mean, there can be some little something in the title that you would know very clearly and you'd be able to point out to us. And I'd look at it and go, what's wrong with that?
Right.
Well,
this falls right into title curative and release tracking. Title curative, basically, if you're trying to cure any defects that happen to be on the title, vendor support BAG can handle that. Release tracking. Real quick example of release tracking. We had a file that an attorney was trying to clear a first and a second that showed up on a title, and the first had been refinanced. The second had been refinanced, but when the new search was done, that second still appeared as a lien. Well, this attorney worked for months and months and months trying to work with First American Title and Wells Fargo, who happened to be the lender, to get it straight. They couldn't do it. They gave it to me. I put my people on it, and they had it done in a week.
Wow. Hey, Dickie, not to get too far afield here, but we see this a lot. So I'm going to ask this question. You buy a note. Sally Smith was the borrower. Sally Smith walked away, or something happened to Sally Smith. John Doe comes along and The property is sold to him. He has a new mortgage. John Doe is now recorded and on title, but you really never knew what happened to Sally Smith. What do you do with that?
You get, number one, you get your title curative involved to do the collateral review and try and analyze the package. But then secondly, with the title curative, and unfortunately you may need to get into having an attorney, and not a nationwide attorney, but a state specific attorney in real estate. I mean, I don't see that a whole lot. Are y'all seeing that in the stuff that you're buying?
I see it every once in a while.
Yeah, every once in a while.
Yeah, and you go, what do I do?
Well, it's the curative, but what you have to be concerned about, when John Doe bought it, was there a title policy done on that transaction? Yep. If it is, shame on the title company.
Right. Well, what I've actually had several local attorneys tell me, which kind of surprised me. They said, "Well, look, John's on title. They recorded it, so you're good." And I'm going, that doesn't give me a warm fuzzy.
Right.
That wouldn't give me a warm fuzzy either.
Yeah.
No.
I've got some real good attorneys in the Bag Network. If that comes up again, you let me know.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Reach out to Dickie. All right, Dickie, I'm
going to show this just because it's good timing. Cindy Coleman says, "Richard, I just had that situation happen to me." How interesting, Cindy. Thanks very much.
Well,
she must have emailed you ahead of time.
She must have. Right on cue.
She was a plant for Richard. Thank you for that comment. You got a new report that you have.
Yes, real quick, and I know that we're running out of time, but to me, this is a fantastic report. What it is, I call it a tax deep dive.
This isn't the whole thing, by the way, audience. This is just a sliver of the first page, really.
Correct. This is a summary. Let's assume that you do an O&E report, title search, and there had been delinquent taxes. And when you get your reports, you'll have your tax rolls and everything that show when the payments were made, et cetera, et cetera. Now, all of a sudden, these taxes are paid. Well, the problem is the title search doesn't tell you who paid those taxes.
Right.
Which means that it could have very possibly been in a tax sale, which at times will also not be a recorded item.
And what is the danger there, Dickie?
If it goes into a tax sale and somebody purchases those taxes, there's the redemption period. It can vary from a year to, months to years and years. But if you do not redeem those taxes, in other words, pay the person that paid those taxes off back the money that they did, plus huge amounts of interest, then they can take the property over. And your note is no good. Right.
So you can be wiped out. And at the very least, your economics of your deal can be ruined. You can go from a 10% yield to a 2% yield very quickly.
Very quickly.
So how do you find that out?
Well, there's two things that can be done. One, if you do your O&E report and you can look at the tax rolls and see if there had been delinquent taxes. And in the O&E report, it'll also show that there had been previous taxes and now they're paid. That's one way to find it. Or the other is, I don't need an O&E report. If you're looking at a property or if you're looking at a pool, and instead of the cost of doing O&E reports on all of them, I've got some folks that are doing just the tax deep dive because it's much cheaper than what an O&E report is, because they're always more concerned about delinquent taxes than they are, quote unquote, a lien being against the property, because you have more delinquent taxes than you do liens filed against a property.
Yeah, the danger is the taxes. Like we said, taxes, title, and blight. Taxes are very important. So in the non-performing space especially, this is where a lot of your due diligence needs to go in with a fine-tooth comb to figure out, okay, I'm getting into this. Do I owe anybody else any money? Do I have to pay off anybody? Did the borrower pay the off? Like what's the story here? So this is an awesome report, and it's going to come in very handy for those that really need to dive deep into taxes.
Well, if you look down at the general comments, I don't have my magnifying glasses on, but it will pretty well summarize that the county showed that the owner, blah, 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 and many times it will have the individual that purchased those delinquent taxes.
So you can match it up to see if it looks like the borrower,
correct,
or owner of the debt,
and then you can contact the person that bought the taxes. I mean, if they paid the money, you're going to have to pay them back if you want that property.
That's if you want your house back, that's what you got to do.
Absolutely. But that's a fantastic product.
We're going to get close to ending the main part of our broadcast, and we want everyone to stay on for our after party because we got several questions lined up here already to ask Dickie and or Richard and myself. So this is R.W. Dickie Baldwin at Baldwin Advisory Group. You can see his office number. Write that down. Reach out to him, D. Baldwin at baldwinadvisorygroup.com. Dickie, your website is also, I assume, baldwinadvisorygroup.com?
Correct.
Okay, cool. Dickie, we appreciate you being a sponsor. We appreciate you being a part of the show.
This has been a ball. I get wound up when I think about all these great new folks getting into the industry, and even the old folks. It's such a joy to be able to help people.
Well, Dickie, your service is great too, because I know that Justin would agree with me here. A lot of people who are getting into notes still have a job. In other words, they've still got a full employment job and they want to buy notes. They want to get into it, but they don't have time to do all this due diligence that you're talking about. So your service fits perfectly into anybody who wants to do something like that.
Absolute. That's
a great way for them to slide in.
One bag for all your real estate services.
That's great.
Yeah, Dickie, myself and a lot of other people that I know in the note business, they lean heavily on you as a vendor to provide the documents and the reports. You do it very quickly, and you, as I said before, you have great customer service. And it's been nothing but rainbows and sunshines over here.
I love it. Love it.
All right, everybody. We've got a course coming out. Richard and I put some stuff together for the newbie investor. We call it the fundamentals of note investing. The name of the course is going to be Constant Cash Flow. And this is just going to be about investing in real estate notes. So if you're eager to learn, we have a video series, a whole package put together for you. We're going to start releasing it probably in the early August timeframe. We've got all of our recordings done. We're just trying to button up how to collect money and get you signed up for it. So that's our last challenge, our last hurdle for that. It's called Constant Cash Flow. It's real estate note investing. And just to close out our main part of our broadcast, please stay on for the after party. List those questions in the comment section on YouTube or Facebook. Our next meeting is going to be August 11th, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern time. All right, check out BrightPath Notes on our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or at BrightPath Notes. I'm Justin Bogard. My email is justin@BrightPathNotes. And we got good old Richard Thornton here at my side. Not a thorn in my side, but a Thornton in my side. Richard at amnotecap.com. I got to keep talking so he can't chime in. So don't be afraid to join our Facebook group. Myself, Richard, and Larry Gill and Mariska Pilch are all moderators of the group. We are very seasoned note investors, and we can answer a lot of your questions. We like to look for deals as well, so pass along your deals in our private Facebook group as well. We'll let you in if you ask to be in. So just look for that Be the Bank logo that you see in the background for Real Estate Note Investing Be the Bank. That's our Facebook group, so check it out. And I'm going to transition real quick and get all three of us going to the after party. So everybody stick around. You're going to get some Q&A with Dickie Baldwin.
Great.
Thank you, guys.
All right. How was that, Dickie?
That was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
I hope I answered all your questions.
You did. You did a great job.
Thank you.
did.
Mm-hmm.
You did. All right. My friend Greg here has been at Jason's. It's okay to call me Jason. I've been called Jason my whole life. My name is Justin. I think he knows that. I think it's a typo. I'm just giving you a hard time, Greg. All the Jasons I know get called Justin, and all the Justins I know get called Jason. So it's a very interchangeable name.
So it's interesting. I get Robert all the time. I don't know why.
You get Robert?
Yeah. Do Roberts get Richard?
Well, I get Dickie, but I always tell people I just never grew up because it's really Richard.
Well, I was going to tell you, Dickie, because I'm obviously Richard and I was Dick when I was little. And I have a little toy truck that my father had painted Dickie Boy on the side of it. So
Really?
Mhm.
Well, my dad senior is Dick, and I'm a junior, and my son is the third, but he's Boogie.
Boogie.
Okay.
Boogie.
Boogie.
Okay.
38-year-old.
All right. So Greg says 21%. Wow. What percentage do private mortgage notes typically run in Indiana right now? Well, I think we've got a little bit of apples and oranges there, Greg. What I was referring to was back in the early 80s. And the Fed chief at that time, a man named Mr. Volcker, had actually increased prime rate to 21% because he needed to slow down the economy. So we didn't think we could squeeze anything more than prime rate out of a loan. So we were making loans, 5-year loans at 21% at that time.
Were they an ARM?
They were not ARMs; they were fixed.
Wow.
Mercy.
Is that even affordable?
No, and we didn't make very many loans, but that's
Okay.
all you could get at the time. And 2 years later, it was down to, I mean, Dickie, I don't remember the exact timing on it either, but it was probably 2 years later, it was probably 15 and then 10, and he took it down as quickly as he could. But basically what he wanted to do is put a hard stop on the economy because inflation was way into double digits at that point.
Yeah, it was a scary time, and that's also when subprime
Right.
was really hot and heavy.
Yep.
Right. So Michael wants to know, when doing a BPO, how do you evaluate the inside?
You want to feel that one, Dickie?
Yeah, absolute. Well, as I said earlier in the presentation, unfortunately, the agents cannot, on an exterior BPO, approach the property or look in the windows. I do have, and if you can get a point of contact, a POC, or if there's a lockbox and you have the code and have permission to get into the house, then we can definitely do an interior BPO. But other than somebody breaking a window and breaking in, it's almost impossible in my eyes to get pictures and evaluate the inside.
Right. Sometimes realtor.com is better than Zillow or anybody else. And they'll have the latest MLS pictures on. Also, if you have access to RPR, if you're a licensed realtor and you can get into RPR and the house was listed in the local MLS, you can access it through there and look, at least get an idea of what it looked like at one point last time it was on the market.
Well, and what you have to be careful about the Zillow and the other places you mentioned, Richard, the date stamp, the time stamp,
right?
Those pictures could have been before the hurricane.
Yeah, exactly, before the hurricane, and also back in 2012 or something. I had one of my investors who was actually quite angry at me. We had talked about this note. I showed him the PPO, showed him the house, all this. And they said, nice. And they went on to, their wife was a realtor. They went into RPR, and the house was obviously a picture that came from 2010. It had been totally abandoned and looked like a piece of what. And they said, what are you trying to do here? And I said, well, just think about your neighborhood. This guy was a Bay Area house. I said, how many houses were sort of in shambles right here in the Bay Area at that point too? And have they been renovated? And he calmed down after that, but you have to be a little bit careful.
Yes, most definitely.
Let's see. Cindy is saying, Dickie, do you have a price sheet of your services, or should I just go to your website?
Cindy, great question. Please, by all means, give me a call because sometimes things are considered rural, which obviously is going to increase the price. And so if I say a price, that always sticks in somebody's head.
Yeah.
And then if you have to change it. But let me say this real quick, because of the volume that BAG does on your behalf with the BPOs and title searches, et cetera, I have basically what I would consider a bulk price for the individual investor, to where you're not having to pay that higher fee. So the prices and the fees from the BAG network, yes, they will vary. And please call me. I'd love to have a conversation with you. We can get down to details on it, but you will find BAG to be extremely competitive. In fact, in some cases below what you already see in retail, because of the volume that I do.
So give Cindy your number one time again.
It's 936-447-4170.
Great.
Yeah, and I can attest to the pricing it is competitive, and not only do you get great pricing, but you get great service with it, and you get really good reports too. So it's definitely worth it. Like I said, we use Dickie, primarily for a lot of our stuff. So
one thing I might mention, because of price, everything that I do is U.S. It's not overseas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for instance, I've seen on the internet, you can do a title search for $35.
Do you think they visited the property?
I can give you a title search for $35.
Yeah.
Cindy, looking forward to speaking with you.
Awesome.
Right.
Good connection.
So tell us, Dickie, what's typical ballpark turnaround? I call you, ring, send you the property information. When should I expect something from you?
Typically, I can turn a title search and BPO around in 3 to 5 business days.
Okay.
There are some property condition reports that I have been able to turn around in 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah. Not for Justin, but somebody else.
Everybody else but Justin, right? Everybody else.
I didn't want to pay extra for it.
Right.
No, but it's 3 to 5 business days, as long as you don't have a rural. And then obviously that does make a huge difference.
Okay. And so I'm just starting out investing notes. I bought 1 or 2 notes. When in my underwriting process should I call you?
Personally, I would like to talk to you when you're beginning to take a look at it. I know an awful lot of the areas, and if it's an area that I know that has, from previous clients, has had maybe tax issues and property decreases, then we can discuss at least doing a tax deep dive and maybe a property condition report to help you make the decision if you want to move forward.
Okay. And you mentioned areas like Cook County earlier.
Yes.
There's a lot of investors who won't go into Cook County.
Absolutely.
They won't go into New York, won't go into New Jersey, and won't go into Pennsylvania.
Correct.
Would you tell us that?
Yes, absolute. For instance, let's go to title search. For instance, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts, and now Baltimore, Maryland, are notorious about not giving tax certificates when you get your title search. They have to be mailed in
Oh, wow.
to the taxing authority if you want a tax cert.
Right.
With that being said, that pricing can range anywhere from just a typical mail, a couple of bucks, to where the county, the township, whatever, can charge $150 because they are trying to generate more revenue for the township. And so they are charging for tax certs being in that area. And so I always let people know, especially in those 4 states and now Baltimore, which has just started, let them know that there is potentially additional cost and delays that you're going to find in your due diligence because you're at their mercy to get that report back.
Right. So along those same lines, I recorded a note about 3 months ago, I guess. And I called the recorder's office, blah, blah, blah. And I found out that the only way I could record it is if the note was hand carried into the courthouse. And so how do you do that? Well, guess what? You have to call a local service that does just that. And they charge you $150 to get it and walk it over there, plus your recording costs. And that added like 4 days time. Yeah.
I have a help with that. One of my vendors is what I call a back office vendor. They do everything on the back office, collateral review, assignments, recordings. They do everything that's needed except be a custodian where they actually hold the files. But because of their network, because they work with the big boys, they're able to help get a lot of those situations taken care of. So if anybody needs that, they can just contact me. I put them directly in touch with whoever that vendor happens to be, and they talk one-on-one.
So is there anything in particular that we haven't touched on here that you would like all of us to know?
Just, in investing and being an ex-investor, and I was back in the old days when nobody knew what a note was, except the old guys that used to be in the mortgage industry. And so we were able to buy notes at a ridiculous price. But through all that time, I've learned it's a fantastic business. But, and I mean this from my heart, if you're not willing to spend a little bit of money to do the proper kind of due diligence, it could ultimately cost you literally thousands. So
I totally agree with that.
Just keep that in mind. I mean, advice from what I would say an experienced person in the industry, that is the best advice that I could give anybody. It's a great business. It's an opportunity for younger folks to have income for when they're older. It's not all a home run.
Right.
They're not all home run. But if you don't do your part up front, then shame on you.
Right.
It's
Cindy,
pretty cheap insurance, right? You spend a couple $100 and you have a $50,000 loan that you're buying. It's cheap insurance. It really is.
Absolutely. And then continual maintenance of your investment, such as the property condition report, the updates, etc.
Right. And so along those same lines, this has never happened to me. I hope it never happens to me. But should one of my clients become disgruntled and litigious or anything like that, you really want to be able to look at somebody or something and say, look, this is what I was going with. I mean, for that reason, when I go to realtor.com and Rentometer and all these different sites, I do a screenshot and I just poke it away in my file and I've got it. And my browser date stamps it for me. So you can always say, this is how I established my underwriting criteria.
Yep.
Correct.
Awesome. All right, Dickie, thank you so much for being a sponsor again and on our show. Thanks for spending a few more minutes after the presentation here to kind of get some Q&A done. So we had a lot of great questions today, a lot of good feedback, and we're really happy to have you on again. We've had you on at least once a year for a couple of years now. So
absolute.
I think you've been my longest running sponsor.
Well, and hopefully the gentleman I sent you today is going to be part of your new class.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for doing that. So, all right, buddy, we're going to end the show.
Richard, fantastic.
Good to see you again.
Not Jordan, not Sam, but Justin.
Right.
Or Jason. Right. Yeah, it's okay. It's all fun.
All right, buddy.
All right, guys.
Y'all have a great night.
All right. Okay. Until August, guys. We'll see you. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.